Yo, what's up guys? Alex here from Elite Football Conditioning, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about stretching, mainly for the reason, once I've got this bit of sellotape off my trainer, mainly for the reason that when I was on holiday a couple of weeks back, I was listening to an audiobook of someone that I generally thought was a well-respected strength and conditioning coach, researcher, man of science, and they got onto the topic of, well, there were a few things in the book that made me question a couple of things, such as even if you're an elite athlete, you should only be strength training maybe once a week, and that's enough. Or I think he'd even got it down to as much as once every 2 or 3 weeks, or just basically borderline lunacy, something that I would never ever do, never ever suggest. And I don't think any elite athlete would feel brave enough to put into practice themselves anyway. So it's a non-starter. However, the key topic that I want to talk about, because it's just kind of cropped up again with another coach that I follow, is regarding stretching. Now, stretching is not inherently bad for you. This came about through some research that was done where a static stretch was held on the hamstrings for a prolonged period of time. I think it was up to about 2 minutes. And then that person performed as many hamstring curls as possible to the death, total failure, and their results were worse than the group that did not do the static hamstring stretch prior to the strength work. Thus leading to stretching ruins your gains, or stretching reduces strength. It's simply not the case. What I would suggest is any form of stretching needs to be followed by some form of appropriate activation. That means if you are going to stretch your hip flexors, if you're going to stretch your quads, if you're going to stretch your calves, your glutes, whatever it is, you then need to follow it up with some form of activation work prior to your physical activity. So before you go sprinting, you then need to do maybe some more dynamic drills, a couple of glute bridges, some calf raises, something to get that muscle activation firing again. So ultimately, it's all balancing length tension relationships through the body. And what I mean by this is if I have super tight hip flexors and I can't extend my hips, if I can't get my hips through to this point, I am not going to be able to jump very efficiently. I am not going to be able to put my foot in the ground and sprint very efficiently, because I'm not going to get that fight from here if these are not going to relax and switch off. So the hip flexors have to calm down. Fair enough, yeah, they can do this, they can pull me up into that 90-degree position, but as soon as I want to put the hammer down and use the glutes to drive my lower limb into the floor and then extend through, the hip flexor has to be switched off. If this is jammed on and it's tight and tense and it's pulling me forwards, my glutes have to be even stronger, and ultimately they're going to be fighting a losing battle. So we can't simply say that stretching is bad for you, or stretching should never be done. It needs to be done properly in the right circumstances. So I would suggest before any form of broad jumps, any form of sprinting, go and do your kneeling hip flexor stretch, squeeze and hold for 5 seconds, tilt your pelvis underneath you and relax it, squeeze and tilt and relax. And you should be able to feel that slight pull through here. What you're not going to do is drive the hips forwards and force that extension and just hang out here for 2 minutes on the hip flexors. That's not going to be good for it. But once we've done that, we can then go and do some glute bridges, and we can then go and do some static hip flexor pulls, some little holds. You could even go and do your A-skip drills, various other things before you then go into your jump or your sprint. So that's one of the best ways to actually apply it to your training, to your exercises, to your pre-match preparation. And funnily enough, one of the coaches that I follow, that I mentioned at the start of this video, who preaches my athletes never stretch because my programs are so good, has just put on a post saying that his athletes very rarely stretch or very rarely use foam rollers. So they do it. So anyone that says they never do it, they're just trying to sell you some shit you probably don't need. Listen to the firm basics. Go and do your stretching, even out any imbalances that you've got. And if you play sport, you're going to have them. You are going to have them. playing football, American football, rugby, cricket, whatever it is, if you perform a repetitive action again and again and again and again, your body is going to remember that, it's going to hold that tension, and you're going to get tight, stiff and sticky. Yes, you can exercise through and create more mobility, and you can create better movement, but not everybody has the perfect plan, and sometimes we need a little bit of a progression to being able to just go and squat, or being able to go and deadlift, or being able to go and perform some form of run and jump. Stretching is a very simple way to start that process. And if you want to look at anybody as an example of stretching being beneficial and being able to maintain strength, power, speed, balance, coordination, go and take a look at what gymnasts are doing, because as far as I can see, there aren't many better out there. So don't listen to all the bluster, don't listen to, oh, my athletes never do this. I can guarantee you, my athletes, they stretch, they roll, they will ice post-workout, they'll strength train, they'll lift heavy, they'll lift through full range of movement, they'll lift through partial range of movement, they'll sprint, they'll work fast, they'll work heavy and slow. We will use everything we can possibly use in our toolkit to make them better. All right, this is not about, it's not, as a strength coach, it's not about me. It's not about saying my way is the best way. I'm simply stealing stuff that I see and that I like and that makes sense to use with people that I deem appropriate. And it works pretty well. So, yes, stretch before you train, do your appropriate activation, get results.